Dude, you're rich!
If he could just find himself again, be the man that I knew him to be, the man that I know he can be.
No!
Oops.
What the hell, Kev?
It's a fake.
So how much do you need?
Not a whole lot. Only around $8 billion.
8 billion?
How much?
About $5,000 a bottle.
Where is all this money coming from?
As they all watched enviously, Iris happily opened the package. When she pulled out the gift, everyone immediately gasped in surprise. Inside the box was a lustrous green emerald bracelet. This bracelet is beautiful. I hope it didn't cost you too much. Not much, Mom, just about $30,000. Vito, you're more than a son-in-law to me. You're a wonderful young man and a welcome addition to our family. After Iris said this, she gave Dorothy a haughty look. Kevin suddenly put down his coffee and got up to leave the room. Dorothy, why did your son-in-law just leave? Could it be that his tiny little company doesn't allow him to take a day off? A few of the other women heard this and couldn't help but laugh. Just as some of them were thinking of leaving, Kevin came back with a red gift bag in his hand. Before they entered the cafe earlier, he'd already expected something like this would happen. So he texted Adriana and asked her to buy something special for him to present to his mother-in-law. Mom, Lily and I have been married for a long time now, and I've never given you anything decent. This gathering seems like a nice place to present you with something to show you how much you mean to me.
How did you find that so quickly, Kevin? Did you just grab it from one of the shops down the street?
The room grew silent as she opened the velvet box to reveal a sparkling diamond necklace. Do you like it, Mom? But Dorothy's friend still didn't believe that it was a genuine diamond necklace. How could someone like Kevin afford to buy something so expensive? Just then, one of Dorothy's classmates walked over to her and asked,
May I take a look at your necklace? I just studied jewelry appraisal in college, and I'd be happy to give you my opinion.
A few minutes later, the woman raised her head and then gave Kevin a puzzled look. In my opinion, these diamonds are all real. Judging from the color and size of them, they're all top quality. This necklace has a value of at least $200,000. Her friends were envious and started commenting on how lucky she and Lily were to have Kevin in their family. One of them even invited them to visit them at their home. Lily and Kevin left soon after and drove back to Corwin Tower. I'm very curious to know what kind of friend would give you a necklace that's worth over $200,000. Oh, it's just a friend who borrowed some money from me a while back. Lily could tell that Kevin was hiding something, but she didn't want to start an argument. She just shook her head silently. When they returned home, Kevin went to the study and pulled out the box that Dominic gave him and looked at the special blend of supplements. Then he opened one of the books that Officer Emmett had let him borrow and flipped through it. After carefully mixing everything and drinking the entire glass, Kevin sat down on the living room couch. He didn't feel any different at first, but about a half an hour later, he let out a long breath and felt a surge of energy. The next morning, Lily got a call from her family. They were having another meeting. She went down to the lobby and took a taxi to the Jones mansion. Now that the KWTD Corporation has invested $300 million to help us get through this crisis, we only have 40% of our company's shares left. Do any of you have some ideas about what we should do next?
My suggestion is to forget about the 60% that we've lost. Let's sell off 10% of the shares we have left. We can use that as seed money to start a new company.
Who would be willing to buy any of our shares?
I have a friend who definitely has enough money to buy 10% of our shares. Grandma, have you ever heard of Lucas Merriweather?
Suddenly, the entire room filled with chatter. Everyone was surprised that Jason knew him personally. After all, he had dozens of martial arts schools, not just in Chicago, but across the country. All right, Jason, call Mr. Merriweather right away. Jason nodded, took out his phone, and called his friend. Jason put his phone on speaker mode.
Hello, Mr. Merriweather. The Jones family is planning to sell some shares. We'd rather sell them to you than to some strangers. So I'm wondering if you're interested.
Why don't we find a place to meet face to face? I'm in Chicago right now.
That's great, Lucas. Have your driver take you to the Jones mansion.
About a half an hour later, 2 long limos pulled up at the mansion's entrance. As the tall, powerful man walked into the reception room, followed by his assistants, Jason quickly brought Grandma Jones to welcome them. Next, Jason gave Meriwether a detailed explanation of his plan and how he hoped to get his support for it. I'm willing to pay $150 million for 10% of the Jones Company shares. This announcement shocked all of them, including Grandma Jones. Grandma had been expecting Meriwether to offer half that amount at most. But I do have one condition. Jason has told me about a cousin of his who is young and very beautiful. So, Mrs. Jones, I hope you will give me your blessing to marry your granddaughter. Mr. Meriwether, I hate to disappoint you, but I'm already married. Perhaps you'll consider one of my other granddaughters. She can always get a divorce, can't she? You have no choice but to sell me your shares. Do you think there's anyone else in all of Chicago who'd be willing to pay $150 million for your useless shares? If $150 million isn't enough, I'll make it $225 million. We don't know each other, but I could learn to love you. When he finished speaking, Meriwether grabbed Lily by the wrist. Mr. Meriwether, please let go. Let go of my daughter right now. Everyone else joined in and demanded that Meriwether let Lily go. This was outrageous behavior. Grandma, we can't let the entire family be ruined just to save Lily's reputation. Just as Meriwether was leaning down to kiss her, a powerful hand grabbed his neck from behind. This made him furious. He let go of Lily, and as he turned around, get away from my wife. This is none of your damn business. Lily's mine now. The anger flashed in Kevin's eyes as he grabbed Meriwether's arm and pulled him away from Lily. Then he threw the big man 10 feet away. The onlookers were shocked to see Kevin's show of strength, but they knew that Meriwether was a highly trained fighter. Kevin was definitely in trouble now. Kevin and Meriwether were fighting right in the main reception room of the Jones mansion. Although Kevin had taught Jason a lesson at Grandma Jones's birthday party, Lily doubted that her husband could beat Meriwether. Lily shouted as she ran to grab her phone and call the police. This is an emergency. Come to the Jones family mansion right away. There's a terrible fight. While Kevin was holding his fist, Meriwether turned and gave him a powerful kick to the head. Kevin calmly reached out his left hand and grabbed Meriwether by the ankle. When he squeezed his hands together, Meriwether screamed in agony. Then Kevin grabbed Meriwether's hands and feet and threw him onto the ground with a dull thud. Everyone there, including Meriwether's bodyguards, were stunned. Before Meriwether could get up from the floor, Kevin put his foot on the man's chest, pinning him down. So what were you saying about my wife, you arrogant... I apologize. Not to me, to Lily. I'll do it. Just stop hitting me. Kevin turned the big man to face Lily. Lily, Mrs. Williams, I'm sorry. I should never have done this. Please forgive me. A few minutes later, they all heard sirens approaching the mansion. Officer Emmett walked in, followed by several backup officers. What's this all about? Officer, please help me. She turned to the other officers and asked them to have 2 more cars sent over. She looked at the Jones family standing in a big circle, then pointed at the men sitting on the floor and added, Take these guys back to the station for questioning. After Officer Emmett finished giving these instructions, she turned to Kevin and Lily and said, Please follow me. Kevin turned to Lily and said, Go home and rest up. I'll be back soon. Then he and Officer Emmett left the Jones mansion. Kevin sat down in the front seat of Officer Emmett's cruiser. She put it into gear and drove through the gate toward the city. After about 10 minutes, Kevin asked her, Aren't we going to the police station? Actually, I already know what kind of guy Meriwether is. I can find out all I need to know from the Jones family. That pill I made actually helped you, didn't it? I really didn't expect it to have such a great effect on me. A few hours after you left, I started to feel fantastic, Officer Emmett said enthusiastically. If you have one left over, may I have it? The supplement has already done its work. Why would you want another one? I have a very good friend who needs some help, she explained. I'm not sure I can help. However, there may be a way for me to help your friend. How? Do you know Dominic Archer? You mean you want me to pay for it? Kevin slowly nodded his head. As long as your friend is willing to pay, I can do it, Kevin said calmly. Don't worry, money isn't a problem. My friend is pretty well off.
How do you know Dominic Archer? And how much did he pay for your pill? How did I meet him? I'd rather not talk about it, but he didn't pay much, just $500,000. Of course, Kevin knew very well that Officer Emmett's friend would never be able to afford to pay that much. Let's go to the police station for a statement. Officer Emmett, I consider us to be friends. In the short time I've known you, we faced a lot together, even fought side by side. I'll just give you the pill. Really? Then he took a small bottle out of his pocket and poured the pill out into his hand. Thank you. Then she quickly took out her phone and called her friend. Hello? Where are you right now? I've got the pill. Officer Emmett said as she hung up the phone. My friend is having breakfast at the Whistler Hotel. We're almost there, so let's head over to meet him. When they arrived at the Whistler Hotel, they took the elevator up to a private room on the 3rd floor. As he opened the door, Kevin noticed that there were 5 or 6 couples in the room. A well-dressed man walked up and stood next to Officer Emmett. I'd like you to meet my fiancée, Kelly Emmett. Today we have another surprise. Mrs. Blair just brought me a miraculous herbal pill. Sherwin, how many times have I told you we aren't married yet, so it's too soon for anyone to call me Mrs. Blair. Just then, one of them looked at Kevin and asked abruptly, Isn't this the guy who married into the Jones family? What's he doing here? Can you even afford to eat here? You probably should have stayed at home. Shut up, Sherwin. Kevin was kind enough to bring you the herbal remedy I was telling you about. Everyone in the room was shocked when they heard that. They really didn't expect Blair's girlfriend to defend Kevin. How could someone like him have any knowledge or skill to make an effective herbal remedy? Before Officer Emmett could respond, Kevin spoke up. Because Officer Emmett and I are friends, I was going to give you a good price, but now I've decided to increase it by 30%. So what? The only reason Kelly has made any progress is her training and her healthy diet. It has nothing to do with that stupid pill of yours. Okay, since her progress had nothing to do with me, then I guess I'll leave. Stop. Who said you could leave without asking for permission? Enough. Sherwin, you're hurting my feelings. Just then, the door opened from the outside. 5 or 6 waiters came in carrying enormous trays. They were used to scenes like this and started serving the meal like nothing was wrong. Then she turned to Kevin and said apologetically, I know this didn't get off to a great start, but can you please stay for the meal? As a favor to me? I'll definitely make sure Sherwin apologizes to you later. All right, I'll stay. Kevin nodded slightly as he tossed the herbal pill to Officer Emmett. She turned to Blair and said, Just trust me, okay? Take this. Blair didn't want to risk making her angry again, so he took the pill and swallowed it. Kevin, at Kelly's request, you're our guest today. The Jones family is on the verge of bankruptcy, so as a favor to Kelly, I can instruct our company to hire you on as a building custodian. Starting salary would be, let's say, $1,500 a month. How about it? Officer Emmett was embarrassed. She suddenly felt guilty that she'd brought Kevin along. So, you're Sherwin Blair. Hardly anyone has heard of you. So this is how you respond to my generous offer? You really are a lowlife. Look who's calling me a lowlife. You should take a good look in the mirror, Kevin replied spitefully. Blair threw his wine glass on the floor. Shards of glass went everywhere. The door was flung open and Drake hurried into the room, followed by a few of his bodyguards. What's going on here? One of the people whispered to the others. This is Drake. He's the head of security here. Hello, sir. Sir, I'm Sherwin Blair. Perhaps you've heard of me. He's the one who broke the wine glass. He was also very rude to my girlfriend. Please, show him the exit for me. Drake, are you really sure you want to do that? As everyone watched in amazement, Drake offered his hand and apologized. I'm so sorry, Mr. Williams. This is all my fault. I didn't recognize you right away, sir. That's okay, Drake. How could you have known it was me? Mr. Williams, I had no idea that you were eating here today. Unfortunately, we're not prepared for you. Would you like me to set up one of the upstairs rooms for you? Blair and his guests couldn't believe their ears. Only the most influential people in Chicago were invited upstairs. Not today.
Thanks. I'm going to take a stroll.
Okay, Mr. Williams. If you need anything, just let me know.
Drake gestured for his men to follow him out of the room. Officer Emmett sped out of the room and ran after Kevin. Kevin, where are you going? I'm going home. I'm really sorry for all this. Let me give you a ride. Okay. Kevin and Officer Emmett had just gotten to the parking lot when Blair ran over to them. Kelly, what are you doing? He figured Drake had been so nice to him because he was related to Grandma Jones. Just then, a long black car with tinted windows screeched to a stop in front of them. The door opened and someone fired what must have been tranquilizer darts at them. The three of them woke up one after another in what looked like the basement of an industrial building. Let me go! A second later, a man punched Blair in the stomach. He collapsed to the floor, writhing in pain. Who do you people think you are? I'm a lieutenant at the 30th District Station. We know who you are, Officer Emmett. That's why you're here. You captured dozens of my men lately. The day before yesterday, you were looking everywhere for me. Xavier Marshall from the Alliance? What do you want from me? Officer Emmett, you have very handsome companions. Marshall, let them go. I was the one who gave the order for your men to be arrested. It's my responsibility, not theirs. She knew very well what kind of dangerous organization the Alliance was. Her department had been trying to stop them for years. She's right. I'll pay $5 million for Officer Emmett's life and my own. Then Marshall turned around and looked at Kevin. Tell me, how much money would you pay in exchange for your life? You may be interested in my ring. Kevin showed him the ring he had taken from Dominic Archer. Kevin had a feeling that there was something special about the ring, but he didn't know exactly what it was. Where did you get this ring from? It's always been mine. When Marshall heard this, he looked like he'd been slapped in the face. Take him to the next room. I want to interrogate him properly. Then he turned around and left the cell. Two strong men escorted Kevin to the next room. When they got to the other room, Marshall asked the two men to leave. As soon as they were alone, Marshall apologized to Kevin and repeated, I had no idea you were the Night King. When Kevin heard this, he was puzzled. He had no idea who or what the Night King was. But now that he saw Marshall treating him like his superior, Kevin figured he could take advantage of the situation to get out of the place. If this guy thinks I'm the Night King, I guess I should act the part, Kevin thought to himself. Well, I can't fault you for your ignorance, Kevin said to him coldly. Thank you for not punishing me for my behavior, Marshall groveled. Then he cautiously asked, What's brought you to Chicago? Nobody contacted me to make preparations for your arrival. Do I need to inform you in advance where I want to go? Kevin said with a sour expression on his face. Then he added coldly, Just do your job and leave the rest to me. Yes, sir, Marshall replied timidly. What Kevin didn't know yet was that nobody in the Alliance knew exactly where the Night King was. Marshall had obviously never met him, but when he saw Kevin, he figured he was too young to be in such a powerful position in the organization. That's why he'd been caught by surprise when he saw Kevin wearing the ring. Kevin casually sat down on a chair and asked him, You just said that Officer Emmett caught a lot of your gang. How could that happen? It's true. She was able to infiltrate our organization. That doesn't interest me, Kevin impatiently interrupted Marshall. As long as we haven't been completely exposed in this town, you can handle the rest yourself. I understand, sir, Marshall said very obediently. Kevin suddenly felt hungry. All he'd managed to have for breakfast was half a cup of coffee at Blair's fancy breakfast. I haven't eaten anything today, Kevin said awkwardly, but he didn't finish his sentence. Well, you're a busy man. I'm sure it's hard to find the time. I'll get someone to make something for you right away, Marshall answered very agreeably. Kevin nodded indifferently and Marshall left the room. Once Marshall was gone, Kevin took a look around the room. From the layout, he guessed that this was probably his private office. As he scanned the room, Kevin saw a black box. What's this? Kevin slowly walked over to the box and studied it carefully. The door of the room was still closed, so he forced the box open. Inside, there was a small vial of powder and a book on how to prepare advanced herbal remedies. Kevin picked up the book and flipped through it.
Then his eye caught a recipe for a powerful hallucinogenic powder that looked a lot like the one in the vial. Based on the description, it seemed to be some kind of herbal weapon. What the hell is going on here? He thought to himself. Everybody seems to be into obscure herbal ingredients. First Cook, then Officer Emmett and Dominic, now this guy. Kevin heard a burst of hurried footsteps outside the door. He didn't have any time to think, so he stuffed the book and the powder under his shirt. Then he quickly closed the box and returned to his seat. When Marshall returned, Kevin clearly noticed that he'd glanced at the box. Was it fear that Kevin saw in the man's eyes? "You seem nervous." Kevin provoked him a little. "I was afraid I was neglecting you, so I rushed back," Marshall explained. Then he turned to the door and said, "Hurry up and bring the food and wine." Before Marshall finished speaking, 3 men came in with trays of sandwiches and fruit, along with a few bottles of wine. They placed it all on the table and hurried out of the room. "I'm very sorry, sir, but since I didn't know you were in Chicago, I didn't make any preparations. This is the best we could come up with on short notice," Marshall said apologetically. "I don't mind," Kevin said as he slowly picked up a sandwich. He looked at Marshall and said, "Have you eaten yet? Would you like to sit down and join me?" Kevin hadn't been threatening at all, but Marshall looked a little skittish. He quickly excused himself, saying, "I couldn't impose. Please, enjoy your meal. I'll be waiting outside the door if you need anything." Then Marshall rushed out of the room. Kevin finished off the meal pretty quickly. Then he opened one of the bottles of wine and poured some of the powder into it. "Is there anyone out there?" Kevin called towards the door. Marshall immediately pushed the door open and entered. He asked politely, "Is there anything I can do for you, sir?" "I'd like to reward your men for their diligence," Kevin said as he casually offered the bottle of wine. Marshall took the bottle and replied, "Thank you for your kind offer. However, we only drink to celebrate." "Are you telling me that my arrival here isn't something worth celebrating?" Kevin asked gravely. Marshall was happy to hear this. He knew very well that Kevin was trying to find an excuse for his men to be able to have a drink. "We're very proud to have you with us, sir," Marshall answered in the most flattering tone he could muster. "Then what are you standing there for? Don't you want your men to have this?" Kevin said with a satisfied smile. "I'll give it to them right away," Marshall said gratefully as he headed out the door. Kevin was starting to feel like his plan might work. Once these people drank enough wine, he could try to save Officer Emmett. But he still had some doubts. He'd gotten his ring from Dominic Archer. Whoever wore it obviously wielded a lot of power. But what was the relationship between Dominic and the Alliance? And what the hell was he doing with the ring? But he'd have to figure that out later. Right now, Kevin's top priority was to get out of this place. Unfortunately, a single bottle of wine wouldn't be enough to get everyone here drunk, even with some of the powder in it. So Kevin poured more of the hallucinogen into the rest of the bottles of wine. He mixed them well and called again, "Come back in." 2 of Marshall's men immediately walked in. One of them asked him very politely, "What orders do you have, sir?" "No orders, but I see that you've got it pretty tough here. So why don't the 2 of you take this wine and share it with the rest of the gang?" Kevin said generously. They were overjoyed that he was being so kind to them, especially considering his rank in the Alliance. They took the bottles and gave him a big grin. "Thank you, sir." "Bottoms up," Kevin said as he gestured to them to leave the room. After the 2 of them left, Kevin walked over to the room where Officer Emmett and Blair were being held. As he approached, the guards greeted him politely. Kevin gave a slight nod and instructed them, "Go and have a drink and a bite to eat with your buddies. I can watch these guys for a while." "Thank you, sir," they said excitedly as they headed over to join their comrades. What Kevin didn't know yet was that he'd gotten the whole gang worked up. There hadn't been anything to celebrate lately, so they hadn't had any alcohol in weeks. After they left, Officer Emmett was baffled. "Kevin, what the hell is going on? Why are they calling you sir?" "I'm not sure. They probably think I'm some big shot," Kevin said with a shrug. "It has to be a mistake. How could a lowlife like you be anyone of importance? They've obviously confused you with someone else," Blair sneered. Kevin looked at Blair and saw just how much he'd gotten worked over. His nose and cheek were swollen and there was still dried blood around his mouth. To add insult to injury, he was shackled to a pipe in the corner of the cell. Officer Emmett ignored Blair's insults. Instead, she turned her attention to Kevin and told him, "Since that's the case, you should find a way out of here. Then you can get some help and come back for us." "Just be a little patient," Kevin said with a smile. Officer Emmett was confused by his mellow attitude. A few seconds later, outside the room, there was a heavy thud. Then there was another one, along with the sound of breaking glass. "I drunk their wine," Kevin said with a smile. "Maybe you're not so useless after all," Blair said excitedly. "Don't just stand there. Hurry up and let us out." Kevin ignored Blair and walked over to Officer Emmett, who was still tied to her chair. Kevin untied her and helped her stand up. "I don't know exactly how long they'll be knocked out. We need to leave as soon as possible," Kevin said as he opened the cell door to let Officer Emmett out. "Can't you see that I'm still tied up?" Blair shouted. "And keep your filthy hands off of Kelly." "Blair, didn't you just agree to pay $6 million to save your own life?" Kevin asked with a sardonic grin. "Do you really think I'm that stupid?" Blair complained. "If you two leave me here alone, they won't care about my $6 million. I'm finished." "I haven't seen any sign that you're all that smart," Kevin replied. "Just stop talking and let me out," Blair sobbed. Officer Emmett sighed and said, "Kevin, please just let him out." "But Blair is so rich and powerful. How could he let a lowlife like me help him? He wouldn't live it down at the country club," Kevin retorted. "Stop being a hypocrite. If they hadn't mistaken you for someone else, you'd be dead right now," Blair roared. "Did you hear that? Officer Emmett, Blair definitely doesn't want me to save him," Kevin said calmly. He wasn't worried at all. From what he saw in the book, they should be knocked out for hours. Officer Emmett sighed again. "Kevin, I know Blair is far from perfect, and I apologize for his behavior, but please let him out anyway, okay?" "Apologize? It's up to him to apologize, not you," Kevin answered firmly. "Kevin, you want me to apologize to you? Dream on," Blair grumbled. "Kelly, don't waste your breath on him. He's not worth it." "Can you please stop arguing?" Officer Emmett said impatiently. "Don't you know who Marshall is? If we leave you here, you'll be dead by morning." Blair was stunned to hear her say this. He knew she wasn't exaggerating. Kevin didn't want to waste any more time. "I'm not worried. Blair can afford to pay his way out." "Kevin, I'm begging you. Let Blair out," Officer Emmett pleaded. But after all of Blair's cruel insults, she wasn't very confident that Kevin would listen to her. He was under no obligation to save her fiancé. "Okay, I'll do it for you, not him," Kevin finally gave in. "But there's just one condition. You have to say please." "Kevin, you're just being a bully." Kevin raised an eyebrow when he heard this. He laughed mockingly and said, "Well, you certainly should know bullying when you see it. That's all you've done since I met you." "Stop arguing." Officer Emmett looked Kevin in the eye and said, "Please." Kevin couldn't say no to her. He smiled smugly and said to Blair, "I'm doing this for Officer Emmett, not for you." Then he walked over to Blair to take a look at his shackles. "Be careful how you speak to me or you'll regret it," Blair growled. "All right, let's see how you do when those guys all wake up," Kevin told Blair as he turned around and started walking away. "Please don't leave me here. I was wrong. Help me, please," Blair whined. He suddenly realized how close he was to facing Marshall and the others on his own. Kevin shook his head in disbelief. He reached down and grabbed the shackle. With a powerful twist, he broke the lock. Then the three of them left the room. The Alliance's Chicago stronghold was a vast network of tunnels. It must have taken them 2 hours to find their way out and get back into the city. On top of everything, Kevin had to swing by the Jones mansion on the way home so he could pick up his car. When Kevin returned to his penthouse at Corwin Tower, It was already past 3 o'clock in the morning and Lily was still sleeping. Kevin went into the study and opened the book he'd taken from the marshal's office, Alliance Advanced Herbal Manufacturing. As he flipped through it, he found scores of fascinating recipes for all sorts of uses, from healing to self-improvement to what you would call weaponized herbs, like the powder that he just used on Marshall's guards. Then Kevin's eyes were drawn to a sentence that was printed boldly in red. These are the ultimate herbal manufacturing techniques of the Alliance. Anyone other than the Alliance's supreme leader who uses these methods without permission will be punished severely. I wonder if Marshall stole this book from the Alliance, Kevin thought to himself. But he didn't care about that now. After all, if these recipes were only for the use of the Alliance's supreme leader, they had to be pretty effective. He kept reading until the sun rose over Lake Michigan. Somehow, even after the exhausting day that he just spent, he wasn't really tired. In fact, he felt refreshed. Finally, when he heard Lily getting up in the other room, he put the book away and went out into the hall. Lily was walking out of the bedroom and saw Kevin leaving the study. She yawned and asked him, "With all these bedrooms, why would you sleep in the study?" "Well, when I got back last night, I went into the study to do some reading. I guess I must have fallen asleep," Kevin replied with a disarming smile. "That's nice," Lily said happily. "Hey, Grandma just had someone give me a call. She said she has something she wants to discuss with everyone. Everybody in the family has to drop what they're doing and get to the mansion by 10:30. "Okay, I'll take you over there." He went to clean up and change his clothes. Luckily, Kevin had gone back to the Jones mansion last night and driven his car back to Corwin Tower. Otherwise, they'd ask too many questions if he showed up today with another one. As they were driving out to the mansion, Kevin couldn't help asking Lily, "Didn't we just hold a family meeting yesterday?" "After you left with Officer Emmett yesterday, we were told that Meriwether would be held for arraignment. So his deal with the family ended up falling through," Lily explained unemotionally. After her family's cold-hearted reaction to Meriwether's attack on her yesterday, Lily had pretty much given up on them. Kevin was sure that nothing good would come of this meeting, so he sent a quick message to Tyler while he was waiting at a red light. When they reached the mansion, Kevin walked with Lily up to the front door. "You'd better not go in," she whispered to him. "If I don't go in, they'll blame you for everything," Kevin said as he took Lily's hand and comforted her. "Don't be afraid. I'm used to being insulted. It helps that I don't give a damn what they think." Lily was touched when she heard this. She understood exactly what Kevin meant. Then she remembered how Kevin didn't hesitate to stand up and fight with Meriwether for her yesterday. This gave her a warm feeling inside. As Kevin and Lily entered the hall, Jason jumped up and shouted, "Kevin, you've got some nerve coming here. If it wasn't for you, we'd have been able to sell our shares." The rest of the family started insulting him, saying that Lily would be better off with Meriwether than with Kevin. Then they defended Meriwether, saying it was just his nature to be aggressive. Jason jeered at Kevin and said, "If I were you, I'd divorce Lily right now. Think of her future. Mr. Meriwether would treat her well, better than you can." He snapped back. "Meriwether? Didn't you just see him sitting on the floor in the middle of this room, waiting for the police to take him away?" Kevin looked Jason in the eyes and added, "Don't you know when you're betting on the wrong horse?" Jason clenched his fists tightly. He wanted to teach Kevin a lesson. But then he thought about how badly Kevin had beaten Meriwether yesterday and how quickly he had done it. He unclenched his fists and sat back down. Kevin didn't pay any more attention to Jason. Instead, he looked around the room at the rest of the family. Then he said to them all sternly, "I just want to ask you one question. If I went and found a gangster to flirt with your wife or daughter right in front of you, would you laugh and cheer?" This meant nothing to them, and they went back to defending Meriwether and saying how much better off they'd all be if Lily married him. This gave Jason the courage to speak up again. "Because of you and your husband, we couldn't sell any of our shares yesterday. Lily, tell me what to do." Jason took a breath and added, "Do this for the family." "Family?" she yelled. "Yesterday I was being assaulted right in this room, and none of you lifted a finger to help me." Grandma Jones slammed her fist on the table. "Enough," she said coldly. "Lily, you'd be better off with Mr. Merriweather. I thought about it all night and I've come to a decision. After Mr. Merriweather is released from jail, you will divorce Kevin. Then I'll make arrangements for you to marry our new business partner." "Grandma, no," Lily said insistently. "I'll never divorce Kevin." "Whether you agree or not isn't up to you. The two of you will divorce today," Grandma Jones declared. "This is for the future of the Jones family. It's not negotiable." As Grandma Jones finished speaking, the blood drained from Lily's face. But the rest of the family was smiling broadly. They figured that, as long as Lily married Merriweather, they'd be able to sell their shares and start their new company. As for whether Lily would be happy or not, they weren't concerned at all. While they were rejoicing, Kevin suddenly laughed out loud. "This really is a joke." "Why are you laughing?" Grandma Jones asked him angrily. "Why am I laughing? It's because you're not only short-sighted, but you're also fools. You've been deceived and you also want to sacrifice my wife for this great chance for a comeback." Kevin continued to mock them. "You're willing to sell one of your own just for money. You don't know anything about familial love. That's why I'm laughing." "What are you talking about?" Grandma Jones said as she stood up from her chair. "Who are you to criticize us?" "You've lost control of your business, and now you're trying to give my wife to Merriweather in exchange for money to fund your next disaster." Kevin's expression slowly became serious. "You're quite the leader." "Get out of here! Someone toss him out the door right now!" Grandma Jones yelled. "I'd like to see you try," Kevin said calmly, without a hint of fear in his voice. Who would dare to lay a hand on him after seeing him toss Merriweather around like a doll in this very room? Nobody said a word. Lily saw that the situation was getting out of control and she was very worried. She tugged at Kevin's sleeve and said, "Please don't say anything else. Grandma's already very angry." "Don't worry, Lily. These people will come crawling back to you," Kevin said gently to Lily. The Joneses heard this and started to whisper to each other. What did he mean by that? Why would they beg Lily for anything? Grandma Jones looked at Kevin and Lily and realized that they loved each other. Before she could say anything, though, the family butler called from the foyer. "Mrs. Jones, the CEO of KWTD Corporation, Mr. Tyler Dawn, is here to see you." She motioned for her senior advisors to join her and walked quickly to the door to greet Tyler. "I'm sorry to disturb you again," Tyler said as he walked into the reception room with his assistants. He had a big, broad smile on his face. "To what do we owe the pleasure?" Grandma Jones asked graciously. "I'm in a bit of a hurry, so I'll get straight to the point. May I ask if Lily is here today? I'm actually here to speak with her." Before Grandma Jones could answer, Tyler had already found Lily in the crowd. He walked up to her quickly. "I'm Tyler Dawn. Very pleased to finally meet you, my friend," he smiled and said. "It's true what they say. You are quite beautiful." When Tyler said this, nobody understood what was going on. Why was he being so friendly to Lily? But they weren't ready for what he said next. "My dear friend, I have to leave town for some urgent business, so I've decided to transfer my shares in the Jones family company to you, along with the earnings from the import-export company. It will all be placed in your name and your name only." Then Tyler gestured for one of his assistants to hand a document to Lily for her to sign. For the first time today, nobody knew what to say. Grandma and the rest of the family were stunned for a moment. Then their faces lit up as it sank in that they could get everything back again. If Tyler Dawn transferred his shares to Lily, wouldn't that be the same as returning all the shares to the Jones family? Not only that, but they'd picked up an international trade company to boot. This was a great day for the Jones family. But Tyler had more to say. My friend, there is one thing I must make clear to you first. These shares are worth $300 million. I only transfer them to you because I trust you. That's the only reason I did this. Don't worry, I won't let you down, Lily said nervously. But, Mr. Dawn, there's one thing I don't understand. Why do you keep calling me friend? This is the first time we've met. Of course it's because you're Mr. Williams' wife, Tyler said candidly. Mr. Williams, if you'd told me that Lily was your wife, I'd have transferred all the shares to her the last time I came here. What? If you'd taken a break from your business now and then and stopped by to visit, you'd have met her sooner. I stand corrected. Just then, one of Tyler's assistants walked over and whispered something in his ear. Tyler's demeanor got more serious. Kevin, I was hoping to have dinner with you, but I need to deal with an urgent matter in New York. Unfortunately, I have to run. Okay. Have a safe trip, Kevin replied as he shook his hand. Then Tyler headed out the door. It took a long time for the Jones family to finally come back to their senses. They looked at Kevin in shock and awe. How could he be such good friends with Tyler Dawn? Lily took a deep breath and asked Kevin hesitantly, You know Tyler Dawn? Yes, we're pretty good friends. Then he added, Lily, now that this issue with the shares has been taken care of, I have to go and run some errands that my boss gave me. Jason could barely look at Lily. No one would have thought that 60% of the family shares would end up in Lily's hands. This controlling share in the company actually made her more important than Grandma Jones. Grandma Jones looked at Lily with a worried expression and had no idea what to say. Just then, Lily's phone vibrated. It was a text from Kevin with a simple message. He told her to hang on tight to the shares and not transfer them to anyone, no matter what. But Lily really didn't need Kevin's reminder. After what happened over the past 2 days, she wasn't particularly fond of the Jones family, relatives or not. Kevin had just returned to his office at Williams Media when he got a phone call. Yes, I'm Kevin. May I ask who this is? Kevin asked in confusion. After all, not many people knew his personal phone number. Hello, Mr. Williams. My name is Philip Quinn. Dominic Archer gave me your number, the man said seriously. Kevin knew right away what the man wanted. Would you like to purchase one of my herbal pills? Yes, Mr. Williams. Dominic said that your pill worked miracles for him. So go ahead and name your price. I promise not to bargain with you. You won't bargain with me? Kevin was surprised and thought to himself, It sounds like I've found someone else with deep pockets. Then a smile appeared on Kevin's face. How about this? If you're really serious, give me a call at this time tomorrow. The price will be the same as I said for Dominic Archer, $500,000. Can you afford that? $500,000? No problem. Then it's a deal, Quinn replied happily. After hanging up the phone, Kevin had a moment of regret. Quinn didn't even flinch at $500,000. He should have probably raised the price. Just then, Miss Wilson came into the office. Mr. Williams, you have visitors, she said excitedly. Visitors? For me? Kevin was stunned for a moment before he reacted. Please, send them in. When the middle-aged couple entered the office, Kevin immediately jumped up from his chair and ran over to them. Mom, Dad, when did you get to Chicago? Please have a seat. Kevin, I heard from your uncle that he put Williams Media under your name. I came to see for myself, Alan Williams said happily. Before Kevin could answer, his mother, Susan Williams, asked him, Kevin, are you really the CEO of Williams Media now? Yes, Mom and Dad. I've been helping the company a lot, so Uncle Thomas put me in charge, Kevin said humbly. Then he offered cheerfully, Hey, now that you're here, why don't you stay in Chicago? I bought an enormous penthouse apartment at the top of Corwin Tower. There's plenty of room for all of us. After Kevin was pushed out by the family, Alan and Sue went back to their old house in the country. Kevin hadn't seen them in almost a year. Alan and Sue looked at each other and nodded in agreement. That sounds fine, but we don't want to put you out. We can always find an apartment, Alan said. Then Sue spoke up and said, But actually, we came to tell you some good news. Your cousin Monty Aspinwall is getting married in New York tomorrow. Before Sue could finish, Kevin's phone rang. It was his Uncle Thomas. He accepted the call and heard his uncle's calm voice.
Hi, Kevin. Are you free tomorrow?
Sure, Uncle Thomas. What's going on? Kevin asked curiously.
It's like this. Your cousin is getting married tomorrow, so I'd like to invite you back into the family as a guest.
Uncle Thomas said cheerfully. Of course. I'll definitely come. Then they discussed the details for a minute before saying goodbye. Did your uncle just invite you to attend Monty's wedding? Alan asked him with a smile. Yes, he did. Let's all go there together, Kevin said happily. In the entire family except for his parents, Monty was the one who had the best relationship with Kevin. In fact, when Kevin was pushed out of the family, Monty was the first one to speak up in his defense. That's a great idea, Alan answered as he looked at Kevin with a pleased expression. We'll let you get back to work now. Your father and I haven't been to the city in a long time. We're going to take a walk, Susan said with a smile. After his parents left, Kevin asked Miss Wilson to buy him a suit. He didn't forget to ask her to choose a gift for the newlyweds. The next morning, Kevin and his parents headed to Midway Airport to take the company jet to New York. The flight only took a couple of hours, and Miss Wilson, with her usual efficiency, had arranged for them to be picked up in a company to go to the Williams family mansion. They arrived a little early, but there were already countless luxury cars parked in front. Monty, who had been standing at the entrance welcoming the guests, brightened up immediately when he saw Kevin. Kevin, you're finally here. I've been waiting for you. Monty grinned as he gave Kevin a big hug. I missed you too. Then Monty noticed Alan and Susan Williams, who had come along with Kevin. Uncle Alan, Aunt Susan, Monty called out happily. Monty, it's been such a long time. You're getting more and more handsome. Thank you for the compliment, Aunt Susan. Then he turned to his fiancée and took her by the hand. Hannah, let me introduce you to more of my family. This is Cousin Kevin, Uncle Alan, and Aunt Susan. Alan asked, Isn't it bad luck to see the bride before the wedding? Oh, we're not superstitious. Then she shook each of their hands. Kevin nodded politely and smiled as he called her Cousin Hannah. Kevin, my dad and the rest of the family are waiting in the main hall. Oh, of course. You have a lot of other guests to greet. We'll head in and take a seat. When Kevin and his family walked into the reception hall, Uncle Thomas was greeting the guests warmly. When he saw Kevin, Thomas immediately put down his wine glass and walked over with a big smile. Kevin, I'm so glad you could make it. Then Thomas looked at Alan and Susan. It's good to see you finally made it back. It's been a few years, hasn't it? Monty's wedding seemed like a good opportunity to reconnect. Alan, please don't blame Dad and our uncle for what happened back then. They have their own troubles now. Just as Kevin was about to say something to liven up the atmosphere, he heard a sharp voice. I see the three of you made it to Monty's wedding. When are you leaving? Laura Williams said coldly. Laura, what did you just say? I called Alan and his family to personally invite them back. Laura didn't understand what had happened with Kevin as well as her husband Thomas did. When the Williams family was facing a financial crisis, Grandpa Williams had personally sent his son Thomas a message. He was to make a special trip to Chicago to find Kevin and ask for forgiveness. That's when Kevin agreed to invest his fortune in the Williams family business. So technically speaking, even the Williams mansion belonged to Kevin now. In other words, if Kevin felt like it, he could easily bankrupt the entire Williams family. What are you talking about? They have the nerve to come back today after everything they did? Laura said spitefully. Their good little boy Kevin is even worse. He went off and married into another family, mooching off of them for 3 years. Laura's ranting drew the attention of a lot of the guests. Kevin and his parents were starting to get pissed off. Laura turned her nose up at Kevin and said, Don't think you can come in here acting all fancy just because you're in charge of Williams Media. Everyone knows that you're only in that position because Thomas took pity on you. The family has lots of other businesses. We don't need that one at all. Then Ethan Williams, Kevin's cousin and the son of Thomas and Laura, stepped out from the crowd and said, Kevin, you got a lot of nerve coming here today. Laura chimed in. You're an embarrassment to the entire family. Why don't you just go back to Chicago? Lauren, Ethan, shut up. Don't do this in front of all the guests. Thomas whispered to the two of them. Then he turned around and said, "Kevin, Alan, please don't pay any attention to them. They've already had too much to drink." But by now, Kevin was insulted. Alan was so angry that his chest was heaving up and down, and Susan was so repulsed that she was starting to look pale. "What's wrong with you, Thomas? How can you help these outcasts?" Laura complained. So far, the wedding wasn't off to a great start. Uncle Thomas tried to calm things down, but he wasn't having any luck.
"You know, Dad, I think you're the one who drank too much. I can't believe you're actually siding with them,"
Ethan said with a sneer.
"Uncle Alan and Susan, what possessed you to come here?"
Actually, ever since they were kids, Ethan had never liked Kevin all that much. Even though he was older, it seemed that Kevin was always better than him, no matter what they were doing. The family had decided to expel Kevin as punishment after his failure in a large investment. But later on, when Kevin's luck turned around and he became super wealthy, Uncle Thomas went and tracked him down to ask him to take over as CEO of Williams Media, as long as he saved the family from bankruptcy. Ethan was jealous because he'd been running the company up until they needed the bailout from Kevin. How could he ever get over a humiliation like that? "Ethan, let's not argue on Monty's wedding day. It won't go well for you," Kevin said coldly. Kevin didn't mind being insulted, but he absolutely couldn't stand seeing his parents treated like this.
"What? Did I hear you right? Are you saying you don't want to argue with me?"
Ethan laughed and said,
"What are you going to do about it? You couldn't take me anyway." "Enough. What are you guys doing? We're all family,"
Thomas said angrily.
"Why do you guys always have to fight?"
"Who said we're related?" Laura sneered. "Just look at what they're wearing. They look like a bunch of who have come to crash the wedding." When Laura finished speaking, Alan's face suddenly turned pale. He moaned and collapsed on the floor. "Dad, what's wrong?" Kevin said as he knelt down and cradled his father. "Alan, you're scaring me," Susan said in a panic. Kevin immediately took out his phone and dialed 911. Then he looked up and glared at Ethan and Laura. He knew very well that his father had collapsed from holding in the anger that was boiling up inside him while he was listening to Laura and Ethan's insults. "Ethan, if something happens to my father, I'll hold you personally responsible," Kevin said bitterly. He could feel the adrenaline building up inside him. Ethan turned his head and looked away. Then Kevin suddenly looked at his Uncle Thomas and said, "It seems I made a bad choice lending money to the Williams family. I think I may just pull out my $8 billion and head back to Chicago." Everyone who heard this was stunned. They knew that Kevin had been shut out years ago, so where did he find $8 billion? Laura put her hands on her hips and snapped at Kevin. "You seem to be confused. Why do you think we'd lend you any money?" "I think you've had a little too much to drink already. I'm not asking for a loan. I gave you the loan. I lent $8 billion to the family to bail them out of the mess they'd gotten into. Just ask Uncle Thomas. He wrote up the contract," Kevin said firmly. Thomas was appalled, and it showed on his face. He quickly walked over to Laura and pulled her away by the elbow. "What's going on?" Laura asked him. "What's he talking about?" Ethan was confused too.
"Dad, what are you doing?"
He was naturally protective of his mother. Monty heard all the noise and rushed over with Hannah.
"Kevin, what happened to Uncle Alan?"
Monty asked nervously. Kevin didn't answer him. He just stared at Thomas coldly and said, "I'll give you 1 day, Uncle Thomas. At this time tomorrow, I'm coming back for my money." Then he picked up his father from the floor and walked carefully towards the door. Suddenly, Ethan roared,
"Stop! Who said you could leave?" "Ethan, what are you talking about?"
Monty said unhappily.
"Monty, this is none of your business. Stay out of it,"
Ethan said with a ferocious expression on his face.
"If you weren't getting married today, I wouldn't have even wasted my time talking to you."
It made Monty sad to hear this, but he took a step back. Monty was only tied to the Williams family through marriage, so he didn't have much say in things, especially compared to Ethan. An ambulance soon arrived at the mansion's entrance. Kevin helped them load his father in the van, and his mother rode along with them. Kevin would follow them as soon as he could. As the ambulance drove away with its siren blaring, Kevin turned around and went back inside.
Ethan was the first to jump up. "Don't you get it? You've already ruined Monty's wedding. Why the hell did you come back?" "Who says I can't come back?" Kevin said coldly. "You're no longer a member of this family. You just aren't welcome here. Get the hell right now," Ethan said viciously. As far as Ethan was concerned, it was because of Kevin that he'd lost his place in Williams Media. And he thought that Kevin had just embarrassed his mother Laura in front of the entire family, so he really had it in for Kevin. "Shut up," Thomas told him. Then he pointed to the other side of the room and said, "Now go wait over there and don't say another word." Then Thomas turned around and looked at Kevin. He smiled awkwardly and said, "Kevin, we're all family here. Let's work this out." "No, Ethan just said that I'm no longer a member of this family," Kevin said blankly. His face didn't show any expression at all. Nothing his uncle said could get him to change his mind. "But Kevin, how can you talk to Uncle Thomas like this?" Monty asked worriedly. "Monty Aspinwall," and Kevin emphasized that his cousin had a different last name. "Don't worry. Tomorrow you can come over to Williams Media for a job. Some people don't want to see us succeed. Well, I guess you can't please everyone." Then Kevin gave Ethan a nasty look. "Kevin, I don't know what to say," Monty replied, shaking his head. Thomas was at a loss for words too. After all, this whole mess had been caused by his wife and his son. "Uncle Thomas, remember what I said. I'll be back tomorrow for my money," Kevin warned his uncle. Then he turned around and looked at Monty. He took a deep breath and said, "I'm so sorry I messed up your wedding, Monty." He took a beautifully decorated gift envelope out of his pocket and handed it to his cousin. It was the one Miss Wilson had prepared for him with a very generous check inside. "You don't have to put up with this. Come to Chicago." Without giving Monty any time to react, Kevin patted him on the shoulder and left the mansion. He knew his father was still unconscious, so he had to rush to the hospital immediately. As Thomas watched Kevin walk away, he turned to his son and shook his head. "This is all because of you," Uncle Thomas said menacingly. Kevin got to the hospital within 20 minutes and saw that his father wasn't being treated yet. Instead, his gurney was just sitting in the corridor. His mother was pleading with the nurse, tears streaming down her cheeks. "Please help him. I'll give you anything you want as soon as my son gets here." "I'm sorry, but the administrator already told you. This is a private hospital and you have no insurance coverage. We can keep him stable, but there's nothing else we can do other than have him transferred to one of the city hospitals," the nurse said sternly. After Alan and Susan left Chicago to live in the countryside, their income came from selling vegetables. They'd managed to save a little money, but certainly not enough to pay for an operation. The intake administrator had sized them up and figured their son probably couldn't afford treatment either. She didn't want to risk a reprimand if Alan went into the operating room without approval. When Susan saw her son walk in, she immediately calmed down. "Kevin, we're over here. Quickly tell them to go ahead and operate on your father." "Mom, what's going on?" Kevin asked in confusion. He didn't know why his mother looked so distraught. "They said that if we can't afford the surgery, all they can do is stabilize him," Susan said as she wiped tears from her face. "What kind of hospital is this? A human life is at stake, and you want to get paid first?" Kevin's expression became instantly cold. "I'll cover everything. Now send him to surgery immediately." "Your father's stable, but he needs our hospital's chief specialist. The bill for this kind of surgery is $120,000, the administrator said impatiently. "I just explained this to your mother, and she said that you would give it to her as soon as you arrive. Do you have $120,000 on you?" "I said I'll pay you. You need to operate on him immediately," Kevin said through his gritted teeth. The administrator didn't believe him and insisted that he pay immediately. Kevin couldn't take this any longer and shouted so loud that you could hear him in the parking lot. "I told you to arrange the surgery immediately." The nurse was frightened by Kevin's outburst and her face turned pale. Everyone up and down the corridor began to wonder what was happening. They assumed that Kevin and his parents couldn't afford to pay for treatment and were fighting with the hospital administrator. Just then, the hospital director arrived with a few security guards. At the same moment, Kevin's phone rang.
When he saw that it was Quinn calling, Kevin answered. Before Kevin could say anything, Quinn explained, "Mr. Williams, I know you're in my hospital right now. Wait for me right there. I'll be down there as soon as I can." Then he hung up.
What's going on here? The director asked in a very serious tone.
"Director, thank you for coming so quickly. These two people can't afford to pay the medical fees and are insisting on treatment. We've already stabilized the patient and there's nothing else we can do. Their son was just yelling at me, and if you hadn't brought security, I'm sure he would have hit me." She exaggerated to make herself look good. Hearing this, the director slowly walked over to Kevin and said,
"Young man, I can understand your feelings, but the hospital has its rules and regulations. As long as you can arrange payment, we will immediately prepare your father for surgery."
"Pay first? What kind of hospital is this?" Kevin said loudly.
"Those are the rules. All we are required to do is stabilize a patient. If our administrator believes the payment will not be possible, we are not required to do anything more. If you continue to cause trouble, I'll ask security to have you removed from the property," the hospital director threatened.
"All this for just $120,000? I'll give it to you now," Kevin grumbled as he slapped his bank card on the counter. The director took one look at Kevin's black card and stared at him in shock. Then he said,
"I'm sorry, but we don't accept fake cards."
Kevin was so frustrated. His father lay there dying and he couldn't get anyone to help him.
If you'll just get someone to swipe my card, you'll find out if it's real or not, won't you? He turned around and gestured for the administrator's assistant to swipe the card. While this was going on, the hospital director turned around and spoke with the administrator who'd been arguing with Kevin.
Go and call security. If that bank card is fake, instruct them to immediately arrest this young man and call the police.
Moments later, the assistant came back with the bank card. She politely said to Kevin, "Sir, here is your card as well as the hospital's invoice. Please remember to keep it in a safe place." The hospital director couldn't believe what had just happened.
Could this be true? He thought to himself. Where did this guy come from? Is he a celebrity or something?
Kevin was exhausted from worrying about his father and having to deal with all of this. "Now, can you please arrange for my father's surgery?"
"Yes, sir," the director said politely. "We'll prep him right away."
As they were wheeling Alan to pre-op, the surgeon stopped right in front of Kevin and spoke to him. "Kevin, what are you doing here? Is the patient your father?" "And you are?" "I'm Dr. Willow. We met at President Wright's birthday party." "Dr. Willow, don't you work in Chicago? What are you doing in New York?" "The hospital arranged for me to come here for an exchange program. I'm working on a new specialty. What happened to your father? It looks like he had an acute myocardial infarction, a heart attack." "Dr. Willow, you must save my father," Kevin said sincerely. "Don't worry, I'll do my best." "Kevin, how do you know Dr. Willow?" "It's really nothing, Mom. I met her at a birthday party in Chicago, but I never expected to see her here in New York."
"Mr. Williams, a nurse has just informed me that your father's surgery will take about 3 hours. I've already arranged for a private room for him," the director said very courteously. This was a huge change from his attitude just a little while ago. He clearly knew that there were no more than 5 people in all of the New York City area who had a black card, so Kevin was someone he absolutely couldn't afford to offend. Kevin nodded his head indifferently. "If there's nothing else, you can stay here with your mother. I have something to attend to right now," the director said carefully.
Kevin didn't say anything but just nodded again. "Kevin, where did you ever get so much money from? I hope you're not involved in something illegal." "Don't worry, Mom. I earned it myself." Then he thought for a moment and continued. "Mom, I'll go to Uncle Thomas tomorrow to get back the money I lent the family. While I'm there, I'll completely cut my ties with them. And when we get back to Chicago, I'll hire a visiting nurse to help you and Dad." "Why would you throw your money away like that? Your father and I aren't old enough to need help taking care of ourselves. Kevin, will Lily be okay with letting us live with you? If she isn't willing, you mustn't force her. Don't let us get in the way of your marriage." "Mom, don't worry. Lily is very down to earth and understanding," Kevin said with a smile.
He wasn't worried about Lily objecting at all because he knew she would definitely agree. But even if she didn't agree, Kevin could just buy another apartment for his parents to live in. Money was the least of his worries right now. Susan fell asleep on the sofa, probably from exhaustion after the scene at Monty's wedding. 3 hours had gone by and the director was walking into the office with Dr. Willow. "Dr. Willow, how is my father?" Kevin quickly asked her. "The surgery was successful and your father is out of danger," Dr. Willow replied. She looked absolutely exhausted. Obviously, the surgery wasn't as easy as she was letting on. Just then, they all heard footsteps hurrying down the hall. When the hospital director saw the middle-aged man in the lead, his face brightened.
"President Quinn, you must help me. This young man was rude to the intake administrator and pestered the head nurse. Worse yet, he even threatened to punch me."
This was an odd turn. After being so polite, the director was suddenly turning on Kevin and his mother. But the hospital director knew that Quinn held a lot of power throughout New York and that he was the real head of this hospital. With his wealth, he had political connections that allowed him to do pretty much anything he wanted. He knew that all Quinn had to do was say the word and Kevin's family would definitely be tossed out. Dr. Willow got very worried when she heard him making these complaints. She'd heard about Quinn's reputation, and now that she heard the director making these false accusations, she was afraid for Kevin's safety. Then the hospital director shouted at Kevin,
"What are you still standing there for? Get over here and apologize to President Quinn."
"Kevin, please go and apologize to President Quinn," Dr. Willow said worriedly. After all, Dr. Willow had heard about the scene Kevin had made in the emergency room, and she knew that Quinn had the director in his pocket. "Don't worry," Kevin said to Dr. Willow softly. Quinn walked over to Kevin and warmly shook his hand. "Mr. Williams, I'm sorry to have kept you waiting. It took me longer than expected to get over here." "No problem at all. I still have the item you requested. Besides, I have some details to work out with the director," Kevin said stoically. When he heard that, Quinn was stunned for a moment. Then he shouted at the director, "Ernie Richter, have you been neglecting your duties?" Richter didn't know what to say for a moment. He never imagined that Kevin would know President Quinn. Then he thought for a second and remembered what Quinn had just said. Suddenly he wondered,
could President Quinn have come here especially for him? Holy crap! What kind of big shot did I just offend?
Richter was on the verge of tears. "Since Mr. Richter doesn't seem to want to answer your question, then let me do it for him," Kevin said with a smirk. "President Quinn, I don't know how often you're able to visit this hospital. Do you know what kind of employees you have? These administrators have no conscience. They park dying patients in the corridor while they shake down their families for money." Then Kevin calmly recounted what had happened earlier. "Ernie Richter, you're a real bastard," Quinn yelled right in the man's face. Before Richter could catch his breath and respond, Quinn continued his tirade. "I give this hospital a lot of support, and I've told you over and over to make sure that any patients who are in serious condition need to be treated. This is certainly not how you provide service in a respectable hospital. The mission is to help people, not to make a profit." As soon as he finished speaking, Quinn looked Richter in the eye and said, "Well, what do you have to say for yourself?"
"President Quinn, I know I was wrong," Richter said weakly.
"Shut up," Quinn frowned. "Pack up your things and get out of here." Then Quinn noticed Dr. Willow, who had been standing patiently next to Kevin while all this was going on. Kevin saw this and quickly reminded him, "President Quinn, please don't misunderstand. The administration was at fault, but it was Dr. Willow who saved my father." "You did well, Doctor," Quinn said seriously. "As of right now, you're the new director of this hospital." Then he continued, "Remember, the first thing you need to do when you take over is to reduce all charges by half. For any poor and seriously ill patients, we will only charge 10% of the set fees. That should set things straight." Dr. Willow shook her head in disbelief. "President Quinn, thank you for your kind offer, but I came to this hospital as part of a research exchange program. I'm officially on the payroll of Downtown General in Chicago." "Chicago?" Quinn took a long look at Dr. Willow and said decisively, "You don't need to go back there. Human Resources will help you complete all the paperwork today." Kevin was very impressed with Quinn's reaction. He knew that the man had done this more or less because he was interested in his herbal pill, but his concern for the hospital's patients was admirable. After making arrangements for Dr. Willow to take over as hospital director, Quinn turned around to look at Kevin and said, "Mr. Williams, how do you think I handled that?" "Mr. Quinn, you've got my respect," Kevin said with a smile. At that moment, Susan woke up. It was amazing that she had slept through all of that. "Kevin, is your father out of surgery yet?" "Yes, Mom, it's over. Dad has been sent to recovery and then he'll have a private room." Seeing that Kevin was leaving with his mother, Quinn panicked. "Mr. Williams, we still have some unfinished business. How about letting my staff take your mother up to recovery? They should be able to let her speak with him for a few minutes once the anesthesia is worn off." Before Kevin could answer, his mother said thoughtfully, "Kevin, if you have something to do, go ahead. I'll be upstairs with your father." Quinn looked at his assistants and said, "What are you all still doing here? Go ahead and escort Mrs. Williams up to recovery. And if she needs anything, do your best to make sure she's happy. President Quinn, if I'm no longer needed here, I'll be on my way." When she saw Quinn arrive, Dr. Willow expected the worst. What she didn't expect was for him to be so friendly to Kevin, which really turned the whole situation around. Somehow she felt that it was because of Kevin that she'd gotten this promotion to hospital director. And now Kevin seemed even more mysterious to her than when she'd first met him. "Mr. Williams, this isn't a good place to talk. Please come with me to my home. Your father will be in good hands while we're gone," Quinn said agreeably. He really couldn't wait to improve his health and his strength. That was far more important to him than firing Richter, who had no sense of medical ethics anyway. "Sure," Kevin replied with a smile. They left the hospital together, and Quinn personally drove Kevin to the most luxurious mansion in the whole metropolitan area. He politely invited Kevin to have a seat while his housekeeper prepared them espressos in the kitchen. Kevin smiled and took a small white vial from his pocket. It contained the 6 herbal pills that he'd prepared the previous night. "Mr. Quinn, this should be just what you're looking for," Kevin said as he poured out a red pill and placed it on the table. "It's hard to believe that such a small herbal pill can help me so much," Quinn said as he carefully held it in his hand. "I guess there's only one thing left to do," he added. "That's right, Mr. Quinn. After you take this pill, you'll feel much better. The ingredients will help to boost all the effort and supplements that you've already tried." "That sounds truly amazing," Quinn said with a laugh. Then he looked at Kevin and said, "Mr. Williams, you're really quite gifted to be able to concoct such a marvelous herbal supplement at such a young age." "I appreciate the compliment, but I have a lot more to learn. Just remember that this pill will help you to reach your next goal, but if you are looking for any further improvements, there are other combinations of ingredients that you'll need." "So, do you have better mixtures that you can create?" Quinn asked in surprise. "There are some more advanced combinations that I could try, but I need to learn a lot more before I can refine my technique," Kevin replied honestly. What Kevin had learned was that the mixture of herbs he had been giving his friends and customers only worked up to a certain point. He was also finding out that there was a lot of very rich and powerful people who were interested in using these supplements to get an edge, and in a lot of different businesses and fields. Here was a man who actually owned a hospital, but still wanted his help. "Mr. Williams, you really are remarkable," Quinn said in astonishment. "Well, let's see how effective it is for you first," Kevin said with a smile. Then he said, "When you take the pill, make sure that you relax, breathe calmly, and give it time to work." "Mr. Williams, aren't you afraid that I won't pay you after I take it?" Quinn joked. "I trust you," Kevin said calmly. "And I know you can afford to pay me. Now go ahead and take it. I'll wait around in case you have any questions." "You're very straightforward, aren't you?" Then he stopped delaying and took the pill. While he was waiting for it to take effect, he ordered his assistant to transfer the $500,000 to Kevin's account. While Quinn was relaxing and waiting for the herbal ingredients to have an effect on him, Kevin took a walk around the room. Quinn seemed to like impressionist art and antique glaze ceramics. Quinn must be loaded, Kevin thought to himself. I'm certain that's an original Monet, not a reproduction. Then Kevin walked to the foyer to appreciate the ornate front door and the enormous sliding doors leading to the back patio. He frowned slightly. Something didn't look right to him. After a while, Quinn got up and walked over to him. Mr. Williams, I can already tell that your pill is working. I haven't felt this vibrant in years. I'm very glad to hear that, Kevin said seriously. But it helps that you've already put so much effort into your health and well-being. Some of these supplements require several doses, but it looks like this one should help you with a single pill. Then Kevin turned around in a circle, starting at the front door and looking at the various wings of the first floor. How have things been going for you since you moved here? Kevin asked carefully. Now that you mention it, my business was doing great when I built this place, but lately it's slowed down a little. I thought it was just the economy, so I've been trying to diversify. Why do you ask? Quinn was wondering what Kevin was getting at. I recently set up a new apartment at Corwin Tower in Chicago. While I was decorating it, a friend of mine gave me a book on feng shui. I'm not usually superstitious, Quinn replied, but I am curious to hear what you have to say. I know a thing or two, but not a lot, Kevin went on. This is a beautiful mansion, but something's not quite right. If you're into feng shui, of course. Please continue. Kevin pointed at the beautiful oak door and said, It looks to me like any positive energy comes in the front door and goes straight out the back of the house. That's very interesting, Quinn said as he looked from the front of the house to the back. You know, my last home was very different. When you walked in, you felt like you wanted to sit down and settle in. When I walk in here, I just want to keep going and head out to the patio, Quinn said in amazement. Kevin looked him in the eyes and said, Mr. Quinn, you may want to consider getting someone in here to advise you. I'll bet you'll feel productive in no time. Quinn nodded in agreement. You know, I haven't been getting much done in this home. Maybe there's something to this feng shui stuff. As long as I'm working on improving my body, why not do the same for my home? He paused for a moment and said, You've been very helpful, my friend. It's my pleasure, Kevin said generously. I'll have a copy of the book sent to you right away. Then you'll know more about the subject than I do. I'd appreciate that, Quinn smiled. But now I need to head back to the hospital and visit with my father. Please let me drive you back, Quinn offered. No thanks. You need to stay here and rest so you can get the full benefit of the herbal ingredients. Then I'll have my chauffeur take you back. It's the least I can do. When Kevin got back to the hospital, his father had already woken up and was feeling better. His mother was sitting by the bed feeding him some vanilla pudding. Dr. Willow walked in and said to Kevin, I'm glad you're finally back. How did the operation go? Were there any complications? Everything's going as well as can be expected. I'm just observing your father's condition. I'm also checking to see if there's anything I can help with. Then she paused awkwardly and added, I have to go make rounds. Excuse me. Kevin was confused by Dr. Willow's reaction to seeing him. Was he that frightening? While he was thinking about this, Kevin, I have something to ask you. Dad, no matter what it is, I'm sure it can wait until you've recovered. Of course, Kevin knew what his father wanted to ask him, but he didn't want to discuss the fight at the Williams family mansion. He didn't feel like being nice to them. What Kevin wanted right now was to teach them a lesson. When his father heard that Kevin didn't want to talk about it, he sighed and went back to sleep. Early the next morning, Dr. Willow had breakfast sent to Ellen and Susan, but Kevin had already left by the time it arrived. When Kevin got to the Williams mansion, his Uncle Thomas was sitting in the head chair. The other family members who had shown up were sitting quietly with solemn expressions on their faces. They looked as if they were waiting for something unpleasant to happen. As Kevin slowly walked into the large reception room, his cousin Ethan leapt up from his chair. I can't believe you have the nerve to come back here. The rest of his relatives started to berate him, telling him to get the hell out of the family mansion because he didn't belong there. He just stood there and patiently waited for them to run out of insults. Then he stared at his uncle and said, It's already been a day since I informed you of my intent. Is the money ready? The insults started flying again, and Kevin just stood there, unemotional. Thomas raised his hand and gestured for everyone to calm down. "Please, let's have some order here. We need to resolve this," he told them. Then he turned to his nephew and said sadly, "Kevin, do you really want to see the entire family go bankrupt?" The $8 billion that Kevin had invested in the family business had saved them from financial ruin. But returning the money to him now would put them in an even worse position than before. "Kevin, aren't you a member of this family?" Thomas asked him glumly. "Am I a member of the Williams family?" Kevin said with a sad smile. "You must be joking. You all drove me out of the family 3 years ago. Who in this room really considers me to be a true Williams?" Thomas didn't know how to answer. "When my father collapsed and was taken to the hospital, which of you went to visit him?" Kevin clenched his fists and said, "If that's how you treat family, then I'd like my $8 billion back." Monty walked over to Kevin and put his hand on his shoulder. He pleaded with him. "Kevin, you must realize that doing this will drive us to financial ruin." "Mr. Aspinwall, Monty, I hope you can stand by my side like you did 3 years ago," Kevin said slowly. "I promise I won't let you down." "Can't we work this out somehow?" Thomas implored him. "What do you think I should do? Continue to let them insult me? Let Laura and Ethan make my father so angry that he has another heart attack?" Thomas took a deep breath. He knew that his wife and son had gone too far. "Kevin, this concerns the future of our family. It's out of my hands. I've already called your grandfather and he's on his way back to New York. He should be here soon. When he arrives, we can sit down and discuss this further. What do you think? Whether we sell our shares or let the family go bankrupt, I'll leave it up to you." Grandpa Williams? Kevin was surprised to hear that his grandfather was on the way there. Without even thinking, he agreed. After that, Kevin looked at Monty. When he saw the determination in Monty's eyes, he let out a heavy sigh before he turned around and walked out the door. "Don't ever come back here," Ethan shouted at him. Kevin's other relatives started shouting more insults at him. He forced a smile and thought to himself, "It's true. You can choose your friends, but you can't choose your relatives." Of course, Kevin didn't really want the Williams family to go bankrupt. All he wanted was for them to apologize to him and his parents for their behavior. As soon as Kevin got into the car, his phone rang. "Kevin, where are you?" It was Lily calling from Chicago. "I'm in New York City, but I'm planning to head back very soon." "Okay, I'll wait for you to come back. Then you can take me out for a stroll," Lily said with a slight hesitation. "I'll be there in a couple of hours. I just have to get to the airport." After Kevin hung up the phone, he decided to call his parents and let them know that he was heading back to Chicago. He figured that Dr. Willow was keeping a close eye on his father, so he didn't need to worry too much. When Kevin got back to his apartment at Corwin Tower, Lily and Rachel were waiting for him by the elevator. "Honey, I'm home," Kevin said with a smile. "Let's go out for a walk. You can carry my shopping bags today," Lily said happily. Ever since Tyler had transferred the Jones family shares to Lily, her relatives' attitudes had changed completely. "Okay," Kevin smiled. Then he reached out to shake Rachel's hand. "Hi, boss," Rachel said nervously. It took them about a half an hour to reach a good parking garage off of Michigan Avenue. Kevin followed Lily and Rachel patiently as they wandered aimlessly looking at the store windows. They finally decided to go into a very high-end jewelry store. Let's see what catches her eye, Kevin thought to himself. Kevin and Lily walked into a chic jewelry store, and Lily's eyes lit up when she saw a beautiful necklace in the display case. "Do you want to try it on?" Kevin said with a smile. "Do you think you might want to buy it for me?" Lily turned her head and said as she batted her eyelashes playfully, "The price tag says it costs $20,000. Do you think you could afford it?" Kevin didn't answer Lily's question. Instead, he turned around and said to the sales associate, "Hi, could you please take this necklace out so my wife could try it on?" The associate walked over reluctantly. She took one look at Kevin and assumed he couldn't afford the necklace. "I'm sorry, but that's not permitted. All jewelry must be purchased before it can be removed from the case," she said in a condescending tone. Based on Kevin's clothing, she decided that he was just trying to impress the beautiful woman who was accompanying him. I'm sorry, did you say that you have to buy it before you can try it on? Kevin was amused. If my wife hasn't tried it on, how will she know if she likes it? The associate didn't want to waste any more time with Kevin, so she replied curtly, Don't worry about that. Our jewelers can make the appropriate adjustments so that the item will fit her correctly. Lily was starting to get self-conscious. She knew that Kevin couldn't be making an enormous salary even though his employer seemed to be pretty generous. She figured that $20,000 would be way out of Kevin's price range, and even though Lily was now in control of over half of her family's shares, along with the profits from the import-export company, the money wasn't really hers to spend on things like this. Kevin, why don't we leave? Lily said as she tugged on Kevin's sleeve. Kevin was disappointed to hear her say this. He wanted to give her the finest things that money could buy. Just then, everyone heard a shrill voice order the associate, Take this necklace out so I can try it on. They looked over and saw an elegantly dressed woman holding an older man's arm as she walked over to the display case. She was pointing at the necklace Lily wanted. Okay, just a moment, ma'am, the associate said as she unlocked the case to remove the necklace for the woman. Kevin was irritated by this. Didn't you just say that you don't allow anyone to try anything on if they haven't already paid for it? Kevin asked indignantly. But can you afford it? She replied disdainfully. I've seen a lot of people like you try this kind of stunt. You just want to take a photo when you try it on and then post it online to impress your friends. What are you talking about? Kevin asked sharply. If you really can afford it, why don't you just buy it? The sales associate said impatiently. How much money can someone like you earn in a year? And what if you get the necklace dirty? It costs us money to clean fine jewelry like this. This store only sells high-end jewelry. We have items that some people couldn't afford if they saved for their entire lives, she added. Now Lily felt really awkward. She really didn't have the spare money to buy this necklace now. Kevin, let's hurry up and leave, Lily said timidly. He patted her on the hand and smiled. Then he took out his black card and tossed it on the counter. You know, I don't really have the time for this. Wrap up every piece of jewelry in the store. I'm buying it all for my wife. She didn't even look at the black card and said snobbishly, Yeah, right. We checked our inventory just an hour ago, and the current stock in the display cases is valued at over $1.4 million. If your card is rejected, I'm calling the police. Then she entered some numbers on the computer and swiped the card, and the sale went through. She looked at Kevin, then at his card, and then back at the screen. Her legs started to feel weak, and she sat down on her stool. The manager saw that something wasn't right and rushed out of the back office. When he looked at the screen and saw the numbers, he almost lost his balance and had to sit down too. They had never seen anything like this. As the manager handed Kevin back his card, he asked hesitantly, Sir, is this your card? Yes. I used it to buy these clothes, too. What do you think of my outfit? Kevin said sarcastically. I'm sorry, sir, that was a silly question. Thank you very much for your patronage. The manager was so freaked out that he couldn't even speak clearly. My pleasure, Kevin said as he took back his card. Wrap everything up and send it to the penthouse at Corwin Tower. Kevin didn't forget to sneer at the rude man and his charming companion. The two of them were so embarrassed that they practically ran out of the store without saying another word. Come on, honey, let's go, Kevin said affectionately to Lily. I just wanted to try on the necklace. Why did you buy the entire store? Lily was very confused and asked him, Where did you get so much money from? I've never bought you anything nice, so I figured I had a lot of catching up to do, Kevin said as he shrugged his shoulders. Don't try to avoid my question. Tell me honestly, where did you get all this money? Lily asked again. She wasn't so easy to fool. Well, as you know, I've been helping my boss for the past couple of weeks. My latest project just earned him about $140 million, so he gave me a bonus of 1% of the sale. It was just enough to cover this purchase. Kevin was lying, but technically he was his own boss, so he figured he was just bending the truth a little. Lily was even more confused now. How could Kevin's boss be so generous? Just then, Kevin's phone rang. When he saw that it was Phoebe Anderson calling, he immediately answered. "Hello, Kevin. Are you free right now?" She sounded a little anxious. "Yes, I'm free. What's wrong?" Kevin asked. He was puzzled by her tone of voice. "Please come to the store. There's something I need you to settle right away," Phoebe said quickly. Then she hung up the phone before Kevin could say anything. Kevin shook his head helplessly. He could tell that Phoebe needed help right away, so he decided to bring Lily and Rachel along to Anderson's Antiques. As soon as he entered the store, he saw a large group of people standing around a table and whispering to each other. Several of them were antique shop owners from the neighborhood. They were convinced that they were looking at a replica because the object was in such good condition. Kevin finally managed to squeeze through the crowd along with Lily and Rachel. Phoebe was staring at an antique marble bust and frowning as she tried to make a decision. She was deep in thought. "How much do you plan to sell this for?" Phoebe asked the seller.
"Ma'am, this bust has been in my family for generations. If I didn't need money for an emergency, I'd never have brought it in."
The young man scratched his chin and said,
"It should be worth about $60,000, don't you agree?"
The antique shop owners in the crowd started whispering to each other. Some thought it might be worth it. Others wouldn't give him $50 for it. Kevin squinted and took a close look at the marble bust. It looked like an authentic Roman bust, probably from the 2nd century. As he walked around it, he could see that someone had tried to repair it, probably in the 1600s. Kevin asked the young man right away, "How much do you want?"
"Didn't I just tell you? 60,000,
he said impatiently. "All right, I'll take it," Kevin said directly. As soon as he said this, the onlookers immediately started to quiet down. They couldn't believe that he was willing to spend so much on an obvious fake. But some of the antique shop owners remembered what happened the last time Kevin was there, and they were curious to see what he would do. But Phoebe was still staring at the bust with a thoughtful frown on her face. She felt that something was wrong, but she couldn't put her finger on it. Suddenly, Lily tugged on Kevin's sleeve and asked him, "Do you know anything about antiques? Be careful." Even though Lily didn't know anything about antique appraisal, she could hear what everyone in the room was saying, and it made her very nervous, especially after watching Kevin buy the entire contents of a Michigan Avenue jewelry store. "Don't worry, I know what I'm doing," Kevin whispered to her. "But these people said it was a fake. Take a good look at it. $60,000 is a lot of money. Don't be cocky," Lily warned him. "Trust me, Lily," Kevin said confidently. Hearing this, the young man got excited and said to Kevin,
"I can tell you have good taste."
"President Anderson, please allow me to cover this man's sale," Kevin said as he handed his black card to Phoebe. "Are you sure you don't want to take a closer look? Be careful," Phoebe said worriedly. It wasn't that she didn't trust Kevin's judgment. On the contrary, Phoebe knew that Kevin was an expert who had already helped her save the company a fortune. But she still had her doubts about this item. "Don't you trust me yet?" Kevin laughed softly. The young man said,
"You rock."
He gave Kevin a thumbs up, then took a bracelet out of his backpack. Phoebe's eyes lit up when she saw it. "Do you want to sell this too?" she asked delicately. As soon as she said this, everyone stared at the bracelet in the man's hand.
"I found this bracelet by accident. If you're interested in it, I'll sell it to you for $25,000.
The man carefully placed the bracelet on the table. Phoebe's expression immediately turned serious. Once again, the antique dealers who were watching the spectacle started chattering to each other. They thought it looked interesting and they were impressed with its color. They couldn't tell if the stone was an emerald or tourmaline, but it was in such good condition they didn't believe it was an antique. If it was a reproduction, there was no way it was worth $25,000. The young man heard the discussion and pressed Phoebe to pay the full amount.
"I can't take any less than $25,000. If you don't want it, I'm sure I can find another buyer."
After Phoebe carefully examined it, she let out a sigh. She could tell that this bracelet wasn't bad, but it couldn't possibly be worth $25,000. Kevin, who had just taken back his black card, asked her, May I take a look?" "If you want to buy it, you can have it for $20,000, the man said happily. After all, he had already made $60,000 from Kevin. Kevin picked up the bracelet and looked at it from all angles. Then he raised it over his head and looked at how the stone looked in the light. Then he put it next to his ear and flicked it a few times with his finger. Finally, he turned to Phoebe and informed her, "You can buy it. $25,000 sounds reasonable." Some of the antique dealers started to criticize him for his decision. They thought that he was giving Phoebe bad advice. But the ones who had seen Kevin at work before knew better and smiled as they waited to see what would happen next. "Kevin, do you have any idea what you're talking about? After all, Miss Anderson is an expert." She knew very well that the Anderson family had a lot of experience in the antique business and that Phoebe had an excellent reputation in the Chicago area as an appraiser. However, what happened next shocked everyone. Phoebe said very calmly, "I trust in Kevin's ability. He definitely wouldn't steer me wrong on something like this." Hearing this, Lily was instantly stunned. She'd been with Kevin for 3 years and had no idea that he knew how to appraise antiques. Why would Phoebe, who came from such a distinguished family, trust him so much? Kevin looked down at the bracelet in his hand and said, "Has everyone here heard of the jewelry that was found in King Tut's tomb?" They all nodded as they listened to hear what Kevin would say next. Well, there were many other artifacts found in countless other Egyptian tombs around the same time. I believe that this bracelet was made by a master artisan based on a lost bracelet from one of those excavations. The original bracelet was intended to give the wearer fertility and immortality. That's why it was left with the deceased in the tomb for the afterlife. I've only seen sketches of the original, but I believe that this reproduction was made with the same intent and the same materials. Together with the original bracelet, the pair of them would be worth quite a bit more, perhaps as much as $3 million. When the onlookers heard this, they immediately started to chatter. The people who had mocked Kevin earlier felt very awkward. Lily also felt rather awkward. She couldn't help but wonder why Phoebe trusted him so much while she, his wife, had questioned his ability. She stared blankly at Kevin and suddenly felt that she had never really understood him. "Okay, transfer $25,000 to this gentleman," Phoebe said excitedly. One of her employees immediately transferred the money to the routing number he'd given them. "Who said I only want $25,000? The man suddenly said. "I want $1 million for the bracelet. You still owe me $975,000. "Sir, how can you do this? I've already transferred the money to you and our transaction is complete." "Didn't you hear what he said? The 2 bracelets together could be worth at least $3 million, the man greedily said. "Even though there's only one now, it's got to be worth at least $1 million. Everyone started berating the man for going back on his word after agreeing on a price. The man didn't care what they thought and said, "My price is $1 million. If you don't want to pay that, then the deal is off." Phoebe was getting more and more upset. From what Kevin had said, the bracelet would only have more value if it were paired with the original, which had been lost 100 years ago. By itself, it was just a curiosity. "In that case, have our money transferred back to our account and leave our store immediately." She would rather not earn any money at all than put up with this nonsense. "I have a rule when I'm doing business. Once the money is in my pocket, I never take it out again." He had an evil smile on his face and was clearly making things difficult for Phoebe. The crowd of antique dealers and other onlookers were exasperated by this man's behavior. How could he refuse to return the money if the sale was off? Shouldn't he be arrested for this? Phoebe gave in to her anger and turned to the store's guards. "Security, arrest him," she said loudly. Kevin didn't expect something like this to happen. With a sullen look on his face, he walked over to the man and grabbed his shoulder. "Let me go," he yelled. "Do you know who I am? I'm Reuben Cook. Maybe you've heard of my cousin Drake Cook." He pushed at Kevin to break free but failed. As he struggled, some fruit fell out of his backpack. "What the heck is this?" Kevin said when he saw the fruit. "Do you think you can bully me just because there are so many of you? If anyone lays a hand on me, I'll call my cousin. If you're not careful, he'll come down here and tear this place apart," he said confidently. The room was silent, as everyone wondered what would happen next. "I don't care who owns this place, you need to play by my rules," Reuben griped. "You're nothing compared to Drake." "Get him out of here," Phoebe said angrily. "How dare you touch me?" Reuben yelled as he finally broke free from Kevin's grip and took a step back. He quickly took out his phone and tapped on one of his contacts. While the call was connecting, he said to them, "You're in deep shit now." "Drake, I'm surrounded," Reuben said frantically. "Send someone down to Anderson Antiques to save me." Everyone could hear Drake's deep voice as he asked, "What have you done this time?" The onlookers got nervous when they realized that Reuben was asking someone like Drake for help. What a mess they were in. Some of them were already making a move for the door. "Nobody's leaving. You're all screwed now," Reuben said arrogantly. Reuben exaggerated everything and tried to make himself look like a victim. "Drake, I came here to sell 2 antiques, but now everyone has me surrounded and they want me to pay them before they'll let me leave." "I'll be right there." Everyone could hear Drake shout over the phone. "I want to see who has the to try something like this." As it turns out, Drake had asked his cousin Reuben to take the bust and the bracelet to Anderson's Antique to have them appraised. If he liked the price, he was prepared to sell them. Reuben ended the call and warned Phoebe, "If you have any sense, you'll give me the full $1 million. Unlike me, Drake has a nasty temper." Phoebe was so furious that she couldn't speak. Everyone started to encourage her to accept the deal to make Reuben go away. Some of them even blamed Kevin for putting them in this predicament. But nobody was willing to ask Reuben to return the store's money. They all started glaring at Kevin. If he hadn't said that the bracelet could be worth a lot more, Reuben wouldn't be demanding $1 million now. Phoebe didn't know what to do. $25,000 wasn't much money for the store, but this kind of behavior was intolerable. After a few minutes, a couple of black SUVs screeched to a halt in front of the store's entrance. Drake rushed into the room, followed by his bodyguards. "Who's been bullying my cousin?" Aside from Kevin, everyone else in the room was trembling with fear. Reuben quickly ran over to Drake and pointed at the crowd. "They said they'd have me arrested if I didn't sell the bust and the bracelet to them." "How could this be?" Drake asked sternly. "Who's in charge here?" Phoebe's face turned pale. Just as she was about to face Drake, Kevin put his hand on her shoulder and took a step forward. "Drake, it isn't him, it's that woman," Reuben said as he pointed at Phoebe. But Drake didn't answer him. He stared blankly at Kevin, and his expression turned from anger to confusion to fear. "Drake, you got a lot of guts bringing your men in here to cause trouble," Kevin said without flinching. As soon as he said this, everyone started to panic, especially the ones who knew Kevin. They didn't want to get drawn into one of his fights. Reuben snarled at Kevin. "Don't think you're so great just because you bought some of my stuff." Before Reuben could say anything else, Drake gave him a backhand to the face. "Why did you hit me?" Reuben said in shock. "You're embarrassing me." Drake scolded him as he pushed his cousin aside. "I'll deal with you later." Then Drake took a deep breath. Phoebe bit her lip nervously when she saw Drake walking towards Kevin. However, what happened next shocked everyone in the room. Drake apologized politely to Kevin. "I'm sorry, Mr. Williams. I had no idea this would happen. My cousin can get carried away sometimes." They were all wondering how Drake knew Kevin. Not only that, he just apologized instead of wiping the floor with him. "So, did you send this over here?" Kevin asked in a menacing tone. This definitely had an effect on Drake, and it showed in his expression. He turned around and shouted at his cousin. "Get over here, you..." Reuben walked over to him, covering his face to try and protect himself from another powerful slap. "Hurry up and apologize to Mr. Williams," Drake said as he pulled Reuben by the ear and made him stand in front of Kevin. I'm sorry, Mr. Williams. I was wrong to do that," he stammered. Kevin glared at Reuben and then turned his eyes to Drake. "Drake, did you really send your cousin in here to strong-arm the Andersons and take their money?" Kevin asked with a steely look in his eyes. "He just told us that you were coming here to tear this place apart." Mr. Williams, this is just a big misunderstanding. Drake was on the verge of tears. Misunderstanding? I'm the one who appraised those two antiques. Are you saying there's something wrong with my judgment? Do you want President Anderson to throw me out of here? Seriously, Mr. Williams, I didn't expect things to turn out like this, Drake replied with an awkward smile. Nobody could believe they were watching this. Seeing that Kevin hadn't accepted his apology, Drake gritted his teeth and slapped Reuben again. Look at the trouble you've got me into, he yelled. Mr. Williams, is there anything I can do to make you accept my apology? Drake pleaded. You shouldn't apologize to me. This is President Anderson's store and your cousin has caused her a lot of trouble today. You really should be apologizing to her. Before Kevin had finished speaking, Drake had walked over to stand in front of Phoebe. What was he going to do now? Drake walked up to Phoebe and smiled apologetically. President Anderson, this is all my fault. Sometimes Reuben can be obnoxious and I should have known better than to send him to such a fine establishment. Please accept my sincere apologies. That's a very nice apology, but it really should come from him, Phoebe said as she pointed to Reuben. Drake grabbed Reuben and shook him. Didn't you hear her? Open that big mouth of yours and apologize to President Anderson. You could tell that he was in pain, but Reuben forced himself to speak. I'm sorry, ma'am, he mumbled. Is everything settled now, Mr. Williams? Drake asked politely. We're good, Kevin replied. Then he turned around and looked at Reuben. I want you to leave that fruit. Do you have any objections? Of course not, Reuben said as he placed it on the table in front of Kevin. How did you get this? Kevin asked as he picked up the fruit and examined it. He kept turning the black fruit over and over until he was sure that he wasn't mistaken. According to the book that he'd taken from Marshall's office, this was an incredibly rare fruit. Whoever had put it in the bin at the health food store certainly had no idea what it was. It probably just looked like a black diamond apple, which isn't quite as rare. But that's not what it was. Actually, it was an important ingredient for refining numerous herbal medicines that were described in the book. Well, are you going to tell him or aren't you? Drake reprimanded his cousin. Mr. Williams, I found this at a health food store on Cicero Avenue. It looked interesting because it was darker than the rest of the fruit. It was the only one like this. I figured I'd let it ripen and eat it later, Reuben answered timidly. All right, Drake, take him away, and don't let this happen again. Thank you, sir. Drake felt as if he'd gotten a presidential pardon. He grabbed Reuben by the elbow and rushed out of the store, followed by his bodyguards, who were careful not to disturb anything on the way out. Kevin didn't stay long either. He said goodbye to Phoebe and led Lily and Rachel out to the sidewalk. What's the deal with you and Drake? Why does he respect you so much? Lily stared at Kevin and asked. It's because he knows I'm very good friends with Mitchell Cook. Lily looked at Kevin and suddenly felt that her seemingly useless husband, whom everyone looked down on, was somehow different. Just then, Phoebe ran out of the store chasing after them. Kevin, I really have to thank you for this, she said gratefully. It was nothing. Just remember to give me a raise, Kevin said with a smile. It's lunchtime now. How about I treat everyone to a meal at my house? Before Kevin could say anything, Lily smiled and said, That would be wonderful. Thank you for the invitation. Lily thought that it might help the Jones family if she could develop a good relationship with Phoebe. After all, the Anderson family was very well respected in Chicago. Phoebe gave Kevin the address of her family's estate. It was about an hour and a half from the antique store. When he got out of the car, Kevin shook his head in disbelief. The estate was located in the western suburbs, facing towards the east. After everyone sat down on the sofa, Lily looked around the large, tastefully decorated room. Then she asked with some hesitation, President Anderson, forgive me for asking, but why don't you have any antiques in your home? It's very simple, Kevin said as the three women turned to look at him. You know about this, too? Lily asked in surprise. As it turns out, I do. While Phoebe's family specializes in antiques, they prefer not to bring any into their home, Kevin explained. It may sound superstitious, but they avoid bringing any objects into the house that might be haunted, he said very seriously. Lily and Rachel had their doubts about this explanation. Lily snickered a little and said, Bull, you're just putting us on." "Actually, he's right," Phoebe said as she brought a tray of appetizers over from the sideboard. "My father told me the same thing. Antiques are beautiful, but we prefer to keep them at the store." They chatted for a while longer, and then Phoebe went into the kitchen to prepare their meal. Rachel and Lily got up and went into the kitchen to help her. Kevin took his glass of iced tea and leaned back on the sofa. But the sofa was a lot softer than he expected, and as he sank into it, he spilled his drink all over his tan pants. Kevin grabbed a few tissues in a hurry and tried to dry himself off. Just then, Phoebe walked out of the kitchen and asked him, "Kevin, do you like chili?" "What happened?" as she saw Kevin sitting there with a huge dark stain on his light-colored pants. "It's not what it looks like," Kevin tried to explain. Rachel and Lily rushed out when they heard all the commotion. "What's going on?" "How am I going to explain this? I swear it isn't what it looks like. I just spilled my iced tea. Don't you believe me?" Kevin almost wanted to die. The three women stared at him, unsure how to respond. "I'm going to the bathroom," Kevin said abruptly. Then he practically ran out of the room. "Just dry off as fast as you can and get back out here." Lily couldn't believe how embarrassing this was. She went back into the kitchen to keep chopping vegetables, thinking about the horrible first impression she was making on Phoebe. Suddenly, the front door was violently kicked open. "Who are you?" Phoebe asked in alarm. "Tie them up," Marshall shouted to his men as he looked around the room. "Kevin, where did you go? Come out now." Kevin, who was still in the bathroom trying to dry his pants, heard all of this and started to fear for his wife and friends. He thought to himself, "Is that Marshall? What's he doing here?" Marshall kicked the bathroom door open. "Marshall, what's come over you?" "So, you're still pretending, huh?" Marshall roared angrily. Then he threw a punch at Kevin. It was a powerful punch that could have knocked out someone twice his size. Kevin stepped just to the side as the punch passed him by. He could feel a blast of air against his face as Marshall ended up hitting the wall instead. Several cracks appeared on the spot where his fist landed. "Marshall, how dare you attack me?" Marshall suddenly looked behind him to make sure that nobody could hear him and lowered his voice. "I have to know. Where is the book you took from my office? Just give it back to me and I won't have you punished for impersonating the Night King." "What are you talking about? I can't possibly carry books around with me all day long," Kevin replied very calmly. "Aren't you going to hand it over?" Marshall said with a monstrous look in his eyes. "Those three women out there mean a lot to you, don't they? How about if I give them a fate worse than death?" "Is that a threat?" "Let's talk somewhere else," Marshall said as he pulled his fist back. They walked into one of the other rooms. As he went down the hall, Kevin could see Lily and the other two women tied up in chairs by the dining room table, surrounded by Marshall's men. Kevin didn't dare to fight back now that Marshall had taken his wife and friends hostage. After Kevin closed the door, Marshall asked in a bitter tone of voice, "Where's the book?" "I told you, I don't have it with me. Are you saying you don't want to hand it over?" Marshall said. Just as he was about to attack Kevin again, Marshall fell to the ground heavily and broke out in a cold sweat. Kevin relaxed when he saw the painful expression on Marshall's face. "Have you been poisoned?" Kevin asked with a slight frown. Marshall didn't answer Kevin's question. He felt like there were countless ants biting him from head to toe. Kevin walked over to Marshall and knelt down next to him to observe him for almost a minute. "An herbal did this to you, didn't it?" Kevin asked in surprise. "How do you know?" Marshall said in shock. Kevin knew which herbal pill Marshall had taken. While some of the herbal concoctions in the book could help someone with just one dose, others had to be taken over a period of time to have an effect. But this one had a very serious flaw. You had to take it every 6 months or you'd have a serious relapse and possibly die. The head of the Alliance did this in order to better control the members. "Marshall, if I can make an herbal pill that will help you, will you let us go?" He clearly remembered reading about this in the book. He remembered the recipe and knew that the black fruit he'd gotten earlier in the day was indispensable. It was an incredible coincidence, but Kevin wasn't worried about that right now. He needed to save Lily, Rachel, and Phoebe. "That's impossible. Only the head of the Alliance can make that, Marshall said in astonishment. I don't care if you believe me or not. If you get the pill, will you let us go? All right, it's a deal, Marshall stammered. You still have 2 hours before it gets critical, Kevin said to him. I'll be back in a minute. After saying this, Kevin opened the window and climbed out. Then he went to his car and got the black fruit. Although Kevin was reluctant to help Marshall, this was the only way he could save Lily and the others. When Kevin got back, he took Marshall to the kitchen. Half an hour later, Kevin had finished refining the pill that would act as an antidote to save Marshall from the effects of the pill that the head of the Alliance had given him. 5 or 6 minutes later, Marshall looked a lot better and slowly got up from the kitchen floor. You'll be fine in another few minutes. Now, can you let us go? If Marshall hadn't kidnapped Lily, Rachel, and Phoebe, and if he hadn't come in there with so many men, Kevin wouldn't have used the black fruit to make the antidote for him. Marshall looked Kevin in the eye and begged him, Sir, please save my men. They've been given the same pill. Without the antidote that you just made, they'll all die within 3 days. Marshall's original plan was to get the book back and return it to the Alliance in exchange for the herbal medication that he needed. But it turned out to be very difficult for him to find Kevin. First, he went to Dominic Archer's family, then the Jones family, and then the Williams family, one after another, but he couldn't track him down until today. At this point, even if he had the book, he wouldn't be able to get to the Alliance headquarters and then return in time to save his men. Kevin frowned and interrupted Marshall. While I admire your loyalty to your men, I really can't save them. What do you mean, Mr. Williams? If you could make the antidote for me, I'm sure you can do the same for them. Unfortunately, to make another batch, I would need more of the black fruit. As you can see, I used all that I had to make your pill. I just found it by chance today, and I have no idea where to get more on such short notice, Kevin said helplessly. Are you talking about the black fruit that looks almost completely black and has a faint fragrance? You know about it? Mr. Williams, they're really not all that hard to find. I'll send one of my men to get some for you right away. Marshall was very excited and relieved. Kevin got excited too. If Marshall really had a source for that black fruit he needed to make his pills, it would be a huge help to him. At this point, Kevin knew that making enough of the pill to help Marshall's men would be a piece of cake. Knowing that Kevin would help him save his men made Marshall feel a little ashamed of his behavior toward him. He had almost harmed someone who could be a valuable asset to his organization. All they had to do now was to wait for his aide to come back with the black fruit.
Hi, Kevin here. If you're wondering what happens next, then stay tuned on the Pocket FM Universe channel for more episodes.
Pocket FM. To unlock all the episodes, click the link in bio.